The 8th Annual Ecologic Awards are back again this year and are set to take place on Wednesday, the 5th of June. And for the first time, artists have been invited to create new artworks for Artists for Nature exhibition to be on display at the 2019 awards taking place on World Environment Day. Now, these pieces reflect the artist's individual passions for nature and the 7 virtues of ecological thinking. Well, for more on this, we joined from our Seapoint studios in Cape Town by the director of the Ecologic Awards, Parry Davies, and with him is curator and director of the Studio Art Gallery, Marc. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you and a warm welcome to the show.
Good morning, Sophia.
Morning, Simba.
All right, David, I'm going to start with you. I want us to talk about the importance of hosting such an event as the Ecologic Awards. I know the title may be self-explanatory, but what really goes into these awards? What are these awards about?
Simba, you know, the world's leaders got together back in 1992 to identify the world's problems. They identified what the problems are that we're facing us, and they also identified the solutions to those problems. What has happened since then, since 1992? Not enough change has happened in proportion to the problems that we've got. And this worried me very much as we are providing environmental education. And I wondered why there hasn't been sufficient change in human behavior. And then Albert Einstein's words suddenly struck. He said, the world we have created has got problems, and you can't solve those problems using the same logic that created those problems in the first place. So that went off like a light bulb in my head, and I sat back and said, well, let's identify the problematic thinking, the thinking that is actually causing these problems. And it comes down to quite simple things, really. If you sat down and you thought about it yourself, you'd come up with the same sort of answers. Short-term thinking. Business is focused not on the long-term position, it's short-term thinking. It's silo thinking. We're not thinking holistically. The earth is interconnected. Everything is interconnected. And yet we're operating in this kind of specialized thinking in each sector. We've become completely disconnected from nature in our urban lives. And so we're not really engaged with it. So we sat down and we analyzed 7 elements of thinking that are highly destructive to the planet. And then we said, well, what's the inverse of that? And we came up with the obvious things like long-term thinking, holistic thinking, Ubuntu thinking. So that's what the Ecological Awards are about. It's identifying the people, the products, the services that are thinking holistically, are thinking ecologically, and promoting them and encouraging people to take that kind of thinking on board, and to support those organizations, individuals who are thinking in a more ecological fashion.
I mean, identifying the people and what they bring to the table, as you just mentioned, is one of the solutions, I believe, of the problem. I mean, let's talk about the art exhibition aspect of this event. Why did you decide to include it this year and partner with Marc on this exhibition?
It's become quite clear that a lot of our behavior is not driven by purely rational thinking. It's driven by our emotions, and we come to a conclusion and then we intellectually justify it. So in the Ecological Awards, what we're wanting to do is engage all elements of the human being, our feelings, our thinking, and art is a great communicator of beauty and feeling. So we're wanting to highlight the beauty of nature and how precious it is and how worthwhile it is to preserve. So the artists provide that for us. They're a visual demonstration of the beauty of nature and how important it is to preserve it.
Okay, Marc, let me bring you in this conversation. Take us through your involvement in this year's awards. How did that come about, and what kind of contribution are you going to bring to this event?
Well, I think I met David about a year ago, and we've been, from the first moment he told me about the Ecological Awards, I immediately saw that there's a connection. We work with very passionate artists who are very passionate about their subject matter, be it nature or wildlife or whatever the case may be. And we put 15 artists together who are represented by the Studio Art Gallery. These artists have all produced work specially for this year's event, And we've kind of given them a platform so that their work can speak. Each artwork will have a kind of the artist's statement, why they made the specific artwork for this exhibition. So we're covering a whole lot of different concerns, and yeah, so it should be a very good synergy between the artists and the Ecologic Awards.
I mean, David just said a very profound statement that we tend to not to use our rational thinking, but rather our emotions. And you gentlemen know that art takes a great deal of thinking. I mean, in those thought processes, what change or rather impact would you say events of this nature, such as the Ecological Awards, are doing?
If you listen to a lot of the messages that have been behind environmental messages in the past, it's don't litter, don't pollute, don't. And the mind does a very funny thing. When you say don't, if I say to you, don't look behind you, the first thing that you want to do is look behind you.
Yeah.
So effectively, what we need to do is the inverse to that. We need to give people what we do want. So we want to show the things that we want to achieve. So we're showcasing those things. The people who've come up with solutions,
okay.
We're going to showcase those. And as I said before, the beauty of nature, we really need to reconnect with nature in order to protect and preserve it and make people want to do that.
Okay, unfortunately, we don't have much time, and I quite like your solutionist thinking. Just give us the details briefly of this exhibition, of these awards, sorry.
The Ecologic Awards are going to take place at the Sun International Table Bay Hotel on the evening of World Environment Day, next Wednesday the 5th. I hope that all South Africans will celebrate the World Environment Day on the 5th. And we will have about 300 guests joining us, most of whom will be people who are involved in doing something positive and constructive about the environment.
All right, David and Marc, thank you many thanks to you two gentlemen for joining us, and all the best in that event on Wednesday. You appreciate your time. That was David Parry, Davies, the Director of Ecological Awards and Director of the Studio Art Gallery, Marc Alexander. They were talking to us about the awards, putting particular emphasis on the artists for nature exhibition aspect of this event.